Expected, Arthur doesn't even put in real effort. He simply flings Charles's hand away like it's nothing. The pussy bastard didn't even see what hit him. He thinks it must have been some instinctive attack from Arthur. So, the arrogant idiot balls up his fist, and before that bastard can even throw a punch, he's suddenly tied down by roots that pop up out of nowhere. Of course, the one using this earth magic is none other than Tessia, but this time she doesn't intervene. She lets Arthur handle the situation. Arthur decides it's time to teach this spoiled brat, who is flaunting his family riches, and title a lesson. With a simple gesture of his hand, he literally pulls the bastard's pants down, turning him into a laughingstock for everyone in the cafeteria. With that, my guy walks away. Outside, he finds Tessia sitting on a bench beneath the vast, starry sky. Arthur thanks Tessia for the help back there, but Tessia knows he didn't actually need her help. Arthur insists that she saved him and Elijah from getting into trouble for the second time today. After this little exchange, silence falls between them, and Arthur has no idea what to do in the situation. Eventually, he turns to apologize, but Tessia turns to him at the same time, too fast. After tending to her aching head, she apologizes to him regarding that recent event, but our boy apologizes in return. He knew she was just looking out for him, so he shouldn't have acted ungrateful by lashing out like he did. The girl admits she's in the wrong too. She shouldn't have called him out in front of all those people. While they're getting all chummy, Elijah suddenly walks up, but what he sees in front of him is totally unexpected. Arthur is literally resting Princess Tessia's head on his chest, which leaves Elijah with a sour expression. He quickly decides to leave, giving Arthur much-needed time with Tessia. Meanwhile, Tessia and Sylvie finally get to see each other. Arthur then stands up and invites Tessia for a little walk. As they walk, he explains everything that led him to this point. Tessia is quite intrigued by his stories. It's amazing to think that he's also been an adventurer. Arthur mentions that he had no idea Director Goodsky was so close with Elder Virion. Now it all makes sense how she knew so much about him. Tessia admits that's one of the reasons she was able to become Goodsky's disciple. She then notices how much he's changed since the last time she saw him. Even the way he moves feels so purposeful, and his face has changed too. Having heard all of his stories, she is feeling jealous of Jasmine from all his adventure stories. Suddenly, Arthur notices her grumpy face and questions her, to which she starts laughing and says it's nothing. As they walk, they finally make their way to the dorm rooms. While they're at it, Arthur shows her the beast's will and gives it to her as a little present for becoming a dual elemental mage. The girl is in awe when she sees it, since she's heard about it from Master Goodsky. While she hesitates to take it, Arthur hands it over anyway, because he can't think of a better gift for her than this. With that, he waves her goodbye and tells her to get some sleep, as they have a big day ahead tomorrow. The girl feels totally warmed up to see him giving her such a precious gift so casually, which definitely makes her feel more important. When Arthur comes into the dorm room, he notices his friend under the blankets, who still hasn't gotten over the fact that Arthur has scored yet another girl on his already long and extensive list. His rather unusual behavior even unsettles Arthur. As they both get into bed, Elijah can't believe that Tessia, the lunar goddess, was leaning her head on Arthur's chest. Arthur questions him about this weird name, so Elijah explains that it's a name the students of this school have bestowed upon their student council president. She looks like the moon. The moon seems so close that you could grab it, but no matter how hard one tries, no one can touch it. But the fact that Arthur touched that moon is really pissing the hell out of this idiot. Arthur shuts this loudmouth up by throwing his pillow over his face and proceeds to go to sleep. The night quickly transitions to the day at the academy, and in the corridor, all the eyes are glued to Arthur, who is rocking his new disciplinary committee uniform, making him stand out more than ever. As he proceeds to enter the committee room, he looks forward to seeing the so-called strongest students of Xyrus Academy. As soon as the door is opened, a lion roars right in Arthur's face, and all the spit coming out of the lion's mouth glistens on Arthur's face. Then steps forward this guy, who had ordered his lion to intimidate our boy. But I guess his plan flopped miserably, as my guy didn't even flinch, let alone cower. He can now understand that Director Goodsky has indeed picked someone interesting. Regardless, the guy smiles and introduces himself as Kai Crestless, from the 4th year, and he'd rather be called Kai. Arthur reciprocates with the gesture and shakes his hand. Arthur also doesn't forget to introduce his bond, Sylvie. While Sylvie is short in height, her presence has already humbled that giant lion that was trying to scare everyone off just now. Even Kai finds it really awe-inducing to think about what kind of beast could render such a powerful lion so submissive. Finally, another member of the council arrives, and this one is so colorful that I don't want to assume their gender, not wanting to offend anyone. But seeing them quickly jogs a memory for Arthur, who remembers them as Same Helgarth, who is head over heels for Elijah. But it looks like our boy has mistaken this person for someone else, because this colorful individual quickly corrects Arthur, saying their name is Doradrea Origuard, from the 1st year. Arthur awkwardly smiles and greets his new fellow, and as a gesture of goodwill, he extends his hand for a shake. But Doradria quickly slaps Arthur's hand away in a rather playful manner. Kai then mentions that the rest of the DC officers are waiting in the other room. As they make their way through this grand place, Kai mentions that Director Goodsky didn't even tell Arthur's name, let alone give any details, so everyone was pretty curious. Doradria quickly grabs Arthur's hand and starts running into the committee room to get him acquainted with everyone. But what Arthur sees inside catches his attention. Well, it's Curtis, the prince himself, who had been waiting for him inside. They both shake hands like good buddies. Meanwhile, Doradria is looking bewildered to see how chummy they both are acting with each other, which makes them believe that perhaps they know each other already. It's not just the prince who's going to be in the committee. There's also Princess Catheln, who will be playing her role in the committee. Then there's another guy who seems to know Arthur pretty well, but I think our boy does not seem to recall this guy's name. But after all these years, Arthur's memory has been a bit hazy, and he asks this dude who he even is. Of course, Faerith gets annoyed and once again introduces himself as Ivysaur. Now that Faerith gives out his full name, Arthur quickly remembers that he's the same guy who had escorted Arthur from Elenoir to the human city of Xyrus. Arthur even recalls this guy's embarrassing nickname, Feifei, which is enough to make everyone standing behind crack up in laughter. Feifei then boasts that even though he's in the first year, he's still 1 year older than Arthur, so he should be respected. Well, my guy is ready to give this guy the respect he deserves, but he can't seem to forget the time when he literally knocked him out with one punch, and that memory still feels like it was yesterday. Now this duo enters. The girl with red hair introduces herself as Claire Bladeheart, a 6th-year battle mage student and also the leader of this little ragtag group. The mention of Bladeheart jogs a memory for Arthur, and he questions her if she's somehow related to Casparian Bladeheart. The girl quickly asks if he knows her uncle, to which Arthur quickly feigns ignorance. He simply twists the story, saying he's heard many great things about Casparian Bladeheart's strength from his father. She then points out that her uncle started training her almost as soon as she awakened, so a lot of her techniques are similar to his. Let's not forget about this big guy, who doesn't seem too thrilled to see Arthur, whom he considers a twerp. Anyhow, he extends his hand to shake, and as soon as their handshake takes place, Arthur feels this gravity magic pinning him down. He now knows that this big guy is just trying to test him, but, well, Arthur breezes through this test like it's nothing, and it's all thanks to his body's assimilation with Sylvie's beast will. All the guys watching are in awe to see that Arthur made it through the big guy's test, and the big guy officially recognizes him. By the way, this big guy is Theo. Kai takes a moment for a round of applause for Arthur, because Feifei over there fell face first into the ground when Theo did that to him. Feifei is annoyed to hear this insult and tries to excuse himself by stating that he's a conjurer while Arthur is an augmenter, so there's no comparison between a brute and a conjurer. Claire tells Feifei to take a chill pill because they barely have any time for the club rush announcement. You see, this will be the very first time the disciplinary committee officers will show their faces to the student body. It looks like Arthur wasn't informed about this development beforehand, so he hasn't prepared anything for his speech. The prince quickly assures him that there's nothing to prepare since the student council will be taking their turn to speak on behalf of the disciplinary committee. And all the disciplinary committee has to do is walk in and look tough. Later, we see the student council president formally introducing the disciplinary committee, a group handpicked by the director to resolve and prevent disputes among students, as well as enforce punishments for troublemakers, all for the sake of upholding peace and safety for everyone. The group finally appears right in front of the entire student body, and Tessia proudly introduces them as the disciplinary committee. A while later, when the regular classes begin, we see all the students in the classroom clamoring about Arthur, now known as a disciplinary committee officer. It seems all the attention his title is attracting has already started to wear him down. Finally, the professor arrives. This guy is a conjurer, and his control over his core is so refined that Arthur can't even sense his level. As soon as the professor hits the podium with a thick book, silence spreads through the room. With everyone's attention now captured, he takes the opportunity to welcome everyone to Fundamentals of Mana Theory. He introduces himself as Professor Avius, their instructor for this course. Although this is technically a basic class, he emphasizes that understanding the topics covered this semester is imperative. There will be plenty of fun projects and assignments along the way. In light of the new changes starting this year, Professor Avius thinks it's appropriate to address what actually started the whole "conjurers are better than augmenters" stigma. Back in the old days, when achieving even an orange core was considered extremely difficult, conjurers had a massive advantage over augmenters. Physiologically, conjurers have much more developed mana veins, which are responsible for absorbing ambient mana and transporting it to the mana core. Meanwhile, augmenters naturally have more developed mana channels, which are responsible for distributing mana from the mage's core to the rest of their body. Because of how much more efficiently conjurers can absorb mana from their surroundings, it's much easier for them to ascend to higher core levels. However, as both types of mages ascend to higher core levels, this distinction becomes less pronounced. Conjurers will eventually be able to distribute their mana through their body more easily, while augmenters will have better control over manipulating mana remotely. So, Professor Avius asks the class, if, in the end, 2 mages, 1 a conjurer, and 1 an augmenter, both reach the silver core stage, who would have the advantage? It's obvious, he explains, that the mage who trains not only their core, but also their body, would have the bigger advantage. The rest of the class went on with some of the conjurer students arguing against Professor Avius's claims. And while the debate could only use hypotheticals and previously recorded duels between high-ranking mages, the discussion seemed to leave the students with a more open mind. Anyway, the class finally came to an end, and Elijah and Arthur had to part ways since they were about to attend different classes. As Arthur proceeds to his next class, he's sure this one will be more interesting. As he takes his seat, he notices Princess Kathleen joining him. She sits next to Arthur and notices Sylvie, getting a little flustered as she calls the little furball a cute animal. Another familiar face shows up. It's Fei-Fei, of course. Without even bothering to ask, he plops himself right next to Arthur. Soon enough, the professor arrives, and just from hearing his voice from a distance, Arthur notices it's the same drunken teacher he had met a while ago. It turns out this guy is here to teach practical mana manipulation, which means this class will be all about hands-on experience. According to him, the best way to learn is through real-world examples. As this guy delivers his lecture, he takes the liberty of eyeing all the hotties in the crowd of students. And then, in the midst of the crowd, he spots Arthur, the same brat who had humiliated him before. Seeing Arthur in his class makes this shitty teacher downright happy, because now he can easily make Arthur's life a living hell. So, he indirectly calls Arthur out by sarcastically claiming how it's an honor to be teaching their very own disciplinary committee officer. He adds that he's really curious to see what kind of abilities the members of this newly formed DC have to offer. Arthur can see right through the bait this drunkard bastard is throwing out, so he doesn't take it because he's no idiot. However, while Arthur stays smart, Fei-Fei once again proves himself to be an idiot. He introduces himself and confidently expresses his desire to demonstrate his abilities. The bastard teacher, on the other hand, feels smug knowing his bait worked perfectly. As Faerith stands in front of the shitty professor, the teacher smirks and announces the start of their little demonstration. He conjures up a sword and states that even though he's an augmenter, he'll only use long-range attacks during this demonstration as a handicap. Of course, this is just so he'll have an excuse if he ends up losing to a DC officer. Once the barrier is activated, it's finally time for them to throw down. Fei-Fei pulls out his little wand and conjures up a lot of water around his feet, calling it the flood domain. Arthur seems pretty impressed by this,